Good evening, Mark and Lauren. First of all, I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules today. I just wanted to have 10 minutes of your time to review your homeowner's insurance coverage. Like you had mentioned, you want to make sure that you have adequate coverage in case of partial or full loss, and we wanted to take a little bit of extra attention towards your personal property coverage. Very first thing that I want to say is that I do have just a brief amount of homework for you, and that's I need some clarity around your open perils coverage. I need to know if that's in full or if it's in part, but more importantly, I'd like to know what is explicitly excluded from that. Typical perils that are not included in your homeowner's policies are earthquakes, floods, neglect, war or nuclear hazard, power failure, or intentional loss. So unless you have any questions, let's go ahead and just take this line by line, beginning with your coverage A or your dwelling coverage. Here you have $700,000 worth of coverage, and this covers your home or any attached structures such as a garage. However, this does not cover your land. What we recommend for this is that it be at least the same as the replacement cost for your home. Coming from your financial statements, I'm seeing that your replacement cost for your home is actually $1,050,000, and what that tells me is that you do have some inadequate coverage here, and that we'd like to increase that to the replacement cost of $1,050,000. Let's move along to coverage B, which are other structures that are detached from your home but are still on the property. We typically recommend 10% of coverage A here, and 10% of your replacement cost to your home, which is what we're recommending we increase coverage A to, would actually be $105,000, and that's what we're recommending that be increased to there. Let's go along to coverage C, your personal property, which we wanted to spend a little extra time on. You currently have $350,000 here. This includes your personal belongings that are possessed by you or your resident family members, and we typically want to see this at about 50% of your coverage A, which means we would want to increase this to $525,000. I want to go over some of the complexities here, that being that the standard policy actually only provides for actual cash value, which, as you can imagine, this is an insurance company, so that is a depreciated value. Just like if you got in a car accident and you had to replace your car, you would not get the full value for the car that you paid for. So if you do want to use your replacement cost for these special items, you do need to specifically elect it. But I do want to go over two sets of items here. One is that certain property has maximum insurance amounts that include jewelry, furs, collectibles like artwork, and cash. And then there are some items that are just completely excluded from the policies, from coverage, that is. Those include animals, birds, or fish, motorized land vehicles that are used off the premise, property or of rumors that are not related to you, and then also any kind of articles that are specifically described or insured by other policies. And lastly, your credit cards are completely excluded. So unless there are any kind of special items here that I just kind of went over that you'd like us to put additional emphasis on to make sure that they do get the replacement cost that you'd like them to, we'll move on and say $525,000 is adequate. If not, we'll need to talk about scheduling or endorsing those items. But since we have limited time, let's just move on to coverage D here, which is the loss of use of your property. And what this means is if your home caught on fire and you had to go to another location temporarily, this will help provide for the living expenses that are occurred while you're living elsewhere. I see that you don't have any other properties, or, as I like to say, anywhere else to retreat while your property was being worked upon. So I am recommending that you add some coverage here, because right now you have zero. And what I'm saying to do is anywhere that's between 5 and 20% of your coverage A. Some something that you're comfortable with. The reason I give a range here is, some folks feel like they can go stay with friends or family during that time, and I'm going to kind of leave that up to you. But I definitely would say that you should get some coverage in this area. But next, let's go to your coverage E. Coverage E and coverage F are similar, and I'm going to explain the difference between those. But coverage E is your personal liability. You have $100,000 here. This protects, against any kind of personal liability for bodily injury or property damage that occurs on or off the property due to your negligence. $100,000 is the minimum, but however, due to your substantial asset base, just like why we'd recommend with an umbrella policy, we suggest you increase this. Typically when things will go to court like this over negligence, if you don't have the money, it's kind of a, they may not go after you, but you all do have the money. So we definitely want to see some coverage here, because if something were to happen, you might be an easy target. Again, the last coverage that we have is coverage F. This is medical payments to others. The biggest difference here, first let me define it. Coverage F is when someone has medical bills, the insurance company will pay them. Medical bills that arose because of an injury that was occurred on your property or that occurred because of your pets, for example. The major difference between E and F is that F pays regardless of who is held at fault. And you have $1,000 here for your medical payment, and that is the typical amount. So the very last thing I wanted to address here, Mark and Lauren, is very simply I've recommended that you increase several coverages here, and no doubt that's going to increase your annual premium. So to combat that, to help offset it a little bit, what I'd like to see as well is you raise your deductible. Higher deductibles and premiums will have an inverse relationship, in that if your deductibles are higher, your premiums are lower. With Mark getting ready to enter into a retirement here, I'd like to limit some of the cash flow coming out of your household, and I think this might be a way to do so. But I'm going to open the floor to you guys real quick just to see if there are any questions that you had. If so, please speak. Okay? Terrific. I'm very glad to hear this all makes sense. So I'll tell you what, I'll let you guys get back to work. I just want to thank you both for your time today. And I know we still have our meeting set for next week to finish everything else that we set out to do. So I will see you both next week. And thanks again for your time this evening. Bye, Mark and Lauren.